My name is Liam Deasy. I work for a company called NeoDyne, system integrator. So been working with NeoDyne for about 13 years now, currently filling the role of the MES and Digital Manufacturing Business Unit Lead. Started my career as an automation engineer and got involved in information systems and everything above the SCADA layer and below the ERP layer, from OE, equipment downtime, performance analytics, job management, work order management, production consumption, quality metrics, etc. So everything and anything, any buzzword you like. And that's me. For me, coming to the Xchange event is always, to be honest, it's one of the things I look forward to in the year, and I always find it a really valuable event because it's more focused than, we'd say, obviously going to Aviva World and the broad stroke events are quite valuable and things like that, but what Xchange offers is something more targeted towards our part of the world, so the markets that we operate in and so on, more targeted roadmap information, more hands-on and more engagement with the stakeholders that we and all the guys in Solutions PT that we've gotten to know and have gotten very familiar with us. They know how we use the products, we know the way they work with the products and so on, and you just really get you get a much tighter integration and a much better feel for where things are going, and a much better steer on strategies and how you adjust left and right and so on. So for me, that's always one of the big value cases, and I suppose just even getting to collaborate with some of the other integrators. I know people might say it's counterintuitive. Why would you want to engage with your competition? But at the end of the day, it's a small market, it's a small industry, and ultimately, we want our customers to be successful. Our customers are successful if we're all working and pulling in the same directions, and the technologies are evolving in the same direction. So for me, that's the big value case. A common question I get asked is about the value proposition around UNS solutions and this whole concept of unified namespace. And it's an interesting question when it comes up, because Unified Namespace doesn't drive a direct return on investment as an initiative in and of itself, but more that it establishes a foundation within your business that enables you to drive on with other projects and other initiatives in a much more future-proofed and a much more effective means that drive better return on investment for those initiatives. So number of key benefits that UNS type approaches drive is the standardization of your a standardization strategy rather than a mechanism around your data capture. So this concept of creating a single point of reference for all of your plant data without actually trying to duplicate it all into one key location, report by exception, allowing for more lightweight solution and less demand on bandwidth as you're trying to transmit larger and larger volumes of data across your network, and the sustainability, substantially reduced number of point-to-point integrations between your different systems becomes particularly valuable in time after you've implemented UNS, where you've legacy systems that need to be deprecated and replaced with new systems. You've actually cut down on those integrations, where if you had 100 different systems on your site, you've 99 systems integrations that you need to go and replace. With a UNS, that cuts it down to a single point of reference again, that allows you to be more future-proofed. Another common question I get asked is about our experience in UNS and our most successful UNS projects. And I suppose one of the elements people tend to lose a little bit sight of is that while UNS is a relatively young concept in the whole digital manufacturing space as part of the Industry 4.0 initiative, the concepts and the key takeaways and the real underlying value isn't new IP. It's stuff that we've always known: connect, collect, store, analyze, visualize. These are concepts that we've always strive to do, and certainly something I've been involved in through my entire career with NeoDyne over the last 13 years, and it's what I've built my business unit in NeoDyne on. The difference is, and what's changed now, is that the technologies that have evolved to enable UNS in a different way, the MQTT comms protocols in particular, and all the associated platforms that are now coming on stream, and with that, they're all evolving with the Aviva product set as well, and gives you a number of different, lots of different benefits then as you move forward. But what are the success factors? What's going to drive a UNS project to be particularly successful? And for me, it's identifying what is the real world problem statement that you want to overcome, to give you that direction, and then it's about empowering your teams or empowering your personnel to actually be able to make the business changes to facilitate overcoming that outcome. Without those two factors, it's just wasted effort. So what are the most common challenges that we encounter around UNS solutions and so on? And there's several always kind of jump out at me. Primary one is a lack of a clear business driver or strategy that's actually driving the initiative. Pilot projects or proof of concepts just to try out the technology is never really going to be successful. You have to have a real world business challenge that you want to overcome that's going to prove some return on investment, not necessarily financially, but just in terms of time or some challenge that you want to overcome. You need to be technology led, or you need to be strategy led rather than being software led. Again, a common problem is where clients are coming to us and they've already picked out the software that they want to use as the solution to their project without having actually stopped and said, actually, there's probably an array or a strategy, an array of software or a strategy that we need to apply here to actually overcome that challenge that I alluded to previously. Standardization for the sake of standardization is a pet hate of mine. Again, if you're standardizing, there has to be a business benefit to why you're doing it, because standardization can breed complexity as well, particularly in the UNS space and with any, if you talk Purdue model, any of the layer 3 systems, because while your ERP layer might be reasonably harmonious, automation, plant floor equipment, they tend to vary in age, complexity, software, everything tends to vary, so the shape of your solution is going to vary with that equipment. So trying to standardize everything is, in my opinion, a fool's errand. I suppose the last one is this concept of, a siloed mindset is the way I describe it, where, we shouldn't capture all data before we capture a piece of information or before we do something. We must ask ourselves the 5 whys, okay? And in this particular context of the UNS, it's self-defeating. Ultimately, my stock answer to when someone asks me the 5 whys around UNS or why we should capture a piece of data is simple: because you don't yet know what it is that you don't know. So a couple of the best practices that you can apply when you're working in UNS, first one we'd always recommend is carry out a digital transformation maturity assessment. Do some level of measurement or gauging where you are as a business across your automation layer and across your IT systems as well, to say, try to get a feel for where are we versus where we should be. Key takeaways with that is engage a third party with a proven track record in that space to help you with that, and don't go into that assessment with a preconceived mindset as to where you are or that there must be a particularly positive outcome. You nearly need to take an excessively negative approach to truly measure what are the gaps or what are the initiatives that you need to start putting in place. So coming out of that, establish a digital transformation strategy for your business. Know what it is you're trying to achieve and where you're trying to go. Engage with a competent and a systems integrator with a proven track record or proven knowledge that can assist you in the space of establishing your UNS or engaging in your digital transformation initiative. And identify with them, what's the proof of concept, what's going to be the pilot project or the pilot problem that we're going to try and resolve, and then work with that integrator to select what is the variety of software, the combinations of things that we're going to put in place to actually overcome that, taking into account scalability for the future, etc. And then, having executed that pilot project, then start to look at, return on investment, future scalability, and next steps, and then iterate on that in a cyclic approach. Recently asked, how do I see, the landscape evolving, in the industrial setting over the coming years now in light of all this UNS stuff, and it's clear that the power of cloud technology is something that everyone is keen to go after, machine learning, AI, and all this good stuff. But no one, or I won't say no one, but people struggle with how do we get from where we are with our disjointed plant floor data to being able to leverage that, and it's about that data cleanup. So UNS type strategies, open source communication protocols, they are the future, and that's the way all the software suites are moving. We see the same with the Aviva portfolio at the moment. The old days of black box proprietary solutions, they're going by the wayside, and those who don't change with the times and get on board with that process are the ones who are going to fall by the wayside with those technologies. I was recently asked earlier today, what are my expectations for the future for Aviva and the whole UNS space? From the event here today with Solutions PT and the recent Aviva World events in Paris, it's actually quite clear that Aviva have grasped the concept of UNS. They've taken a very open approach and challenging themselves on what are their strengths and what are their weaknesses within that portfolio, and you can definitely see a whole load of initiatives happening now, particularly with Aviva System Platform and Aviva InTouch, being driven by John Krajewski and Ricard Nairn and their teams to emphasize the open protocols, a big emphasis on MQTT and the ability to publish into these UNS type architectures to be more open. The flex licensing model, while it's not a new concept, again is growing in popularity and is actually enabling end users to pilot software, pilot projects without the large scale capital investments that would have been traditionally involved in perpetual licenses and so on. And while there is a tendency for people to want to shy away from subscription based rather than perpetual, because you don't have the same ownership in people's mindsets, it's a short-term view in my opinion. By going flex, it allows you to try things. If you get things wrong, which we all inevitably do in the world of engineering, particularly now so as the technology is evolving so quickly, it gives you options on how you can chop and change your approach without massive wastage of cost.